My name is Mike Lucking. I'm with the City of West Carrollton. I'm the Economic Development Director. And on behalf of the City of West Carrollton, I'm pleased to welcome you all here tonight. I'd like to make some introductions if I could. I'd like to begin with the West Carrollton City Council. First of all, Mayor Jeff Sainer is here. I believe he's being interviewed in the back. Evening, Mayor. Council Member Angie Fryman, welcome. Council Member Jill Tomlin, welcome. Council Member Amanda Zinni, welcome. Good to see you. Council Member Keith Tilton, I believe he is here, yes. Council Member Rick Barnhart, Vice Mayor Rick Barnhart, welcome. Council Member Rick Dobson, welcome. And City Manager Brad Townsend. I'm just going to preface all this by saying it's because of the folks that I just introduced that the city has the commitment, the vision, the determination to make the project that we're going to discuss with you tonight possible. This is hard stuff, and they have to make hard decisions to do this. It's a commitment of the city's time resources, financial resources, and it's a very public thing to do. So I believe they deserve to be commended because this is good stuff that is transformational for this community long term. So I hope you all appreciate that, and I appreciate the work that they do. This tonight is the culmination of 2 days of work that has taken place. We have our design team for the Whitewater Park that has been in town. They arrived actually Tuesday night. We began work yesterday, been working for the past 2 days, and we want to share that information with you tonight. But the project that we're talking about, which is the West Carrollton River District project, it is really a two-part project. There are two parts of this. They're both equally essential, but one part is really kind of a private part in that is the development of the land that the city owns at Exit 47. The city has acquired over 25 acres in that area that is designated for private development. We have a quality development team in place. We really have a hybrid team, and I'm going to introduce a member of that team to you. But the team that we have in place is a developer by the name of Larry Dillin, who is the principal of Dillin Development. And we also have the Woodard Group, who is also a Dayton-based developer that's doing a lot of exciting things around the region. So we think we have the best of both worlds. I know one of the things that I really admire about Larry, and I believe that why the council has so much faith in him, and well-deserved, is that he pays attention to quality. The things that he's involved in quality development, and he pays special attention to that. So this is really a once in probably all of our lifetime opportunities to reset Exit 47 and what the gateway to our community looks like. So we want to get this right, and we have the right people in place to do that. So without any further ado, after that great introduction, I'm going to welcome Larry Dillin forward to talk to you about river development at Exit 47.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here. You're going to see an exciting presentation tonight, which will follow mine. I have been working with City Council and staff for, I'm sure it's over 3 years now, that we've been working on putting together a plan for the River District. I recall the day when Brad and Mike came to my office to visit me the first time, and they told me that they wanted to put together a project starting at the interchange, but not only at the interchange, that it needed to be a special project, that it needed to change the way people think about West Carrollton as a community. One of the great advantages that you have in West Carrollton is you have this interchange, and thousands, tens of thousands of cars use that interchange every day, but most people drive right through. They may hit fast food restaurants and so on, but most people are driving right through as they commute to work and home. You also have this great asset called the river that is highly underutilized. And so you're going to hear more about that tonight. But our goal is to couple those things together. The fact that you have an interchange with lots of traffic, and you have wonderful opportunity with the waterfront. And so we're designing a solution that tries to maximize the impact on the community from both aspects. So again, who's the development team? Again, our company, we are known in the region and in the state actually for doing large-scale master planned mixed-use projects. That's what we do. I personally have been doing this for over 40 years. I'm hoping to eventually get it right. Austin Landing is one of our projects. Those of you that are in the community would be familiar with that. The first project I did was a 400-acre, $500 million master plan in Perrysburg, Ohio, which is a suburb of Toledo. So we've been doing this for a while. As I say, we're helping other communities as well as West Carrollton put programs together. And our focus, as you can see, is that our goal is to create legacies. If it's not a legacy-oriented project, if it's not about character and quality and sustainability, if it's not about improving the fabric of the community, then we're not interested. In this case, we are teamed up with Woodard Development. It's our first project that we've teamed together on. But Todd Duplain, one of the principals at Woodard, and I worked together in the development of Austin Landing. So we have several years of working relationship together in a slightly different role for Todd. The beauty of the Woodard Group is that they have more resources than we do. So the Dillin team focuses more on the planning aspects of a project and acting as a guide to the community and making recommendations on how to make the right kinds of decisions and how to attract the right kind of quality development. The Woodard strength is in execution, going out and marketing the property, bringing potential end users to the table, working through the public works development, infrastructure, roadways, and so on. All of that is a strength of the Woodard Group. So we're actually very excited to be working together as a team and happy to be working with the city. We respect the leadership in West Carrollton because they've been on a very long journey, longer than ours. For me, this is a 3-year project. For the city, it's a couple of decades. That is great stewardship in the community. They've done a great job of getting control of land that's important, and now we can do something with it together. Overview of the interchange and the area around it. Uses that have been talked about. There's been some interest expressed in medical office use at the site. A collection of restaurants and hospitality at the interchange itself. So this is both an opportunity and a danger for the community. We don't want, the city does not want, and we agree, do not want a prototypical highway interchange development. If we wanted to get a Motel 6 or Super 8, that'd be a slam dunk. That's easily done. If we wanted to get just a collection of fast food restaurants and have more of what you already have, that'd be relatively easy. What we want is something with more heart that provides more options for people that live in the community and people that are passersby visiting the community. There's also the riverfront that we talked about. We see an opportunity for townhomes right on the river. There's enough room to do that. We've got a layout and a concept plan for that. And that'd be a for sale kind of a product. We also are talking about a marina and some restaurants right on the waterfront. Nice quality sit-down restaurants that overlook the waterfront, overlook the river. The plan that we put together originally showed some apartments, higher quality multifamily use within the city. That's an opportunity. That's something the city does need to be healthy as it grows. But there's also additional opportunity, and it comes because of the Whitewater project. if we do the right job of melding what you're going to hear from this design team, melding that in with the overall master plan concept, we can do something that's much more special for the whole development and the whole community. We can make this area a destination. And it's driven less by us and more by the folks you're going to hear from next. They're experts at what they do. So this was the concept plan that we put together that we've shown to council. Council has endorsed, and we're in pursuit of that plan now. The first thing that has to happen is some infrastructure improvements. Those are in design now, and I won't try and bore you with the phase 1, phase 2, but the bottom line is before we sell land, we need to get the roadways and the infrastructure improvements put in place so that we can better control the character and quality of the development that follows. So just a couple of shots of that. So that work is underway now. From a planning standpoint, so right now the subsurface engineering studies and the traffic studies are being completed. Those will be completed this month, along with the overall preliminary design concept for all the public works project will be completed this month. And then we go into phase 1. So if I back up a slide, there's a temporary road to be constructed while we close the connection to, I believe that's Alex Bell that runs around the corner. Manchester. And so that work will happen first, and then as we move toward the waterfront, that'll be a second phase. So again, from a timing standpoint, that design work is going to proceed in October, should be wrapped up by March and ready for competitive bidding in March of '24. The phase 2 timelines picks up after the completion of phase 1. That moves forward in March through July, and then that should be ready for bidding in July of '24. So the first things that you're going to see happening on the site is the infrastructure improvements that allow us then to move forward with vertical development. Now that doesn't mean that nothing else is happening. The Woodard Group has been working very hard to market the property nationwide, including going to the annual shopping center convention in Las Vegas to present the project to potential end users. There has been interest expressed. The job then becomes, once interest is expressed, we need to then sort through that, make sure that it's keeping with the character and quality of the types of uses that we really want to see for the project. So we don't just take whoever shows up. We carefully evaluate who shows up and make a decision with the city as to whether or not this is accretive in value to the city or whether it's just more of what you have today. So that's the process that goes on. From an overall market standpoint, this won't be a surprise to anyone. With the turmoil caused by inflation and the Fed having to react to that to raise interest rates to tame inflation, that has a somewhat of a backlash effect on the commercial real estate industry and commercial lenders. So as interest rates go up, the pressure from federal bank examiners on the portfolios of commercial real estate loans tightens, and so it makes it a little more challenging to get loans processed. There's not as many lenders that are active today as there was a few months ago. That's a temporary issue. As inflation comes under control, we believe that interest rates will start to come back down, and more lenders will be available to provide loans, and that'll spur more development work. So my guess is we're going to go through a period of time here where the Fed is doing what it needs to do to get inflation under control. Some real estate activity will slow down a bit until that rights itself, and then we'll be right back at it. So in the meantime, what we say to all the communities we're working in is now is the best time to plan. Plan for the future success that you want, so you know what it is you're looking for when the opportunities come.
Well, I guess one of my questions is going to be, what made the decision come to for apartments, more apartment buildings? I noticed they're Class A, so does that mean they're more higher end? Does that mean that more middle-class families will be going to those apartments, or
Yeah,
how does that work?
well, it's a great question. We actually are not certain that apartments will end up being part of the program. So we've put them on the plan as a placeholder because we do believe, from a planning standpoint, better quality housing options in West Carrollton is part of the answer for the long-term stability of the community. The reason we make a reference to Class A apartments is the apartment buildings that you have in West Carrollton today are temporary buildings. They're built to be temporary buildings. You know, they serve a life and then they fall into disrepair. Sometimes they change hands and it's a downward spiral. If we were going to propose to put apartments in, they would be of a commercial grade, commercial quality, investment grade design, which means steel and block, interior elevators, controlled lobbies, security controlled lobbies, that kind of thing. Having said that, we agree with City Council, and I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but we agree with City Council that now is not the time to pursue that kind of opportunity. Our company actually pursued some multifamily development in the center of town by the water tower, and we got very little positive response at the quality level that we wanted. So we went back to council and said we should stop because we're not ready yet in this market to attract a higher quality product. We would not recommend going forward with any kind of multifamily unless we could achieve that higher quality. Again, having said that, if I go back to the plan, where we show the apartment opportunity, I'm actually more excited as the Whitewater project is progressing. I think the opportunity for development in that area changes dramatically as the success of the Whitewater program comes to fruition. We haven't had the opportunity to talk with council and staff about this specifically, but my goal is to work more closely with this team and then propose back to City Council that perhaps we change the master plan to take advantage of what's going to occur with the Whitewater. Why do I say that? Again, our commitment is to not simply do a prototypical highway interchange because it doesn't really add value to the community. We want to do something that raises the bar for the quality of life for those people that live in West Carrollton. So I think that we can do a better job if we are a little bit patient and we allow the Whitewater program to get some legs, and then we can modify this design concept to take advantage of all the folks that they will drive from the way of traffic. And that'll be good for people in the community, because now when we would go out and market to hotels, we're no longer talking, for example, we're no longer talking about a Motel 6. Now we're talking to a higher quality flag. Same thing with restaurants. The opportunity to get good quality restaurants around that marina concept will be driven by the success of the Whitewater Park, is my belief. So that's how I feel about the apartments.
Is there a sequence of events that you can kind of walk us through in a timeline of which of these items will come first, second, third, fourth?
I'll tell you that my crystal ball is fuzzier than it normally is because of some of the challenges that are being experienced in commercial real estate right now. Having said that, in all the master planning work that we do on all of our projects for various communities, we look for public space that can be energized with activity, because that becomes the heartbeat. Those, for example, those of you that may be familiar with the programs that our company used to organize for Austin Landing when we were managing that site, we did that with intent. The intent was to drive traffic to the site so that we could get better quality restaurants and better quality hotels. We'd like to see the same thing happen here. So if we have to start at the interchange and all we have is the interchange, well, that's all then about local traffic. It's not, we don't have the destination orientation that we gain with the Whitewater development. So I'm putting lots of pressure on you folks down here. But that's what will work. Now you become a regional draw. Once you become a regional draw, you become a destination for the whole project. And so we can orient the project that way. So when we come back to phasing, I'm not saying that no development can happen or should happen until the Whitewater Park is constructed. I'm not indicating that. But I am saying that things will accelerate from a development standpoint as you have success with the Whitewater Park.
Is there any height limitations due to the airport across the way?
I have done that on other projects, but honestly, I don't know the direct answer to that question on this site. There is, with FAA, there are rules, both from a distance standpoint and a height standpoint, and those vary. So it's kind of a sliding scale. What I can say is that if we're in the flight path of the FAA-controlled space, they will dictate the heights.
Is there any kind of public use space in there with the Class A apartments in the Whitewater, like parks or other ways for the citizens to be able to use the river and kind of a pavilions, the music, that kind of thing?
The short answer is that the water park is a public park. So that will be open to the public. There will be no admission charge to enjoy the Whitewater Park. And when we get into the presentation, we'll talk about the elements of the park. But the vision is that not only do you have to be a whitewater surfer or a kayaker, it's just going to be a place to come and recreate. And I would envision that we will be doing some programming at that location, perhaps music, perhaps other types of events. But it is open to the public. It is yours as a citizen of the community.
Mike said that well, and I don't want to steal the thunder of what you're going to see here in a little bit. As a company and all the communities that we work with, we talk in terms of creating public space that can be energized with activity. Our goal at the end of the day is to not have whatever happens at the River District be our development. It's to be the community's development. And we want you to think about it that way. Take ownership in using that public space, because it's yours. They're doing it for you.
In that area where you have the proposed apartments, does that not encompass the current storage units that are down on the river?
It does.
And that would mean that acquisition would need to be made for that property.
That's correct.
So what pieces of property on the river are currently owned?
I don't know that I have a plan that I can show you that identifies that. But where we have the restaurants, the marina, the townhomes, the medical office, and the retail restaurants and hospitality, that is all city-owned property. And there are a couple of other parcels that the city controls as well. They did not control the store and lock apartments, which is one of the reasons why we haven't spent too much time trying to analyze how to use that.
You know, that last question actually goes right into the question I was thinking. Thinking ahead, right? And I really appreciate you guys thinking ahead. That means a lot to us. especially thinking about being unique in the city, because there's so many different things off the exits where that's the same exact thing. So being unique is a really important thing that I always believed in. So thank you guys for thinking ahead. But with the thinking ahead, I don't know if it's in your vision, but do you guys have for future projects, because I know, like you mentioned earlier, there's a few other parcels that you guys have, the city has. And I know that there was plans before, and I think if there's a few more parcel, like acquisition that you guys get, I know that might be a part of your plan. I didn't know if, let's say, like the Shell gas station on Alex Road, if that is sold and the city buys it, or, and, please respect what I was about to say, but the trailer park home, because I don't know a better way of saying it, if, they ended up selling that, getting rid of it, do we have plans thinking ahead where we can have something there? Does that make sense? Am I saying that right?
Yeah,
Like, is that something that's in your future vision? If those things do get acquired, what you can do, because I know you did it with the Class A apartments, and you mentioned that already. I didn't know if you're doing the same thing with the trailer park home and the property with the Shell gas station and whatever building that is.
our experience with every other project and every other community that we have worked in, investment success brings additional investment. We have tried to create a vision for the city on the properties that they control. And yes, we took some liberties with saying something should happen with the store and lock area, ultimately. We don't control what happens with private property owners. So only the marketplace makes decisions about those kinds of ownership transitions. Again, we commend the city for the vision it has had to date in acquiring the properties that it has. Without the city having done that, you wouldn't have the opportunity that we're talking about today. You have to get enough of a critical mass that you can make a statement about who you are. So rather than see this project develop one building at a time, I'd feel much more comfortable if we were creating a critical mass. And we get several uses going together at roughly the same time. Then you can tell the world, you don't have to tell the world anymore. The world can see what you're doing from a character and a quality standpoint. If you do it one building at a time, it's very difficult for people to understand where you're going. When we put together master plans on development projects that we're doing, I always think in terms of core assets, strategic assets, and ancillary assets. Core assets are things that are so fundamental to your long-term success, like a water park, that you got to be hands-on with that and drive that project, because it's so fundamental to the long-term viability of everything else. Strategic assets are also very important assets to be created, but you may not have the skill set to operate those things. So we can develop a hotel. I can't operate it. So we have to have a strong operating partner who doesn't just have experience. They have to have the right value set to understand the greater whole and to make certain that when we create a hotel, that hotel fits seamlessly with its neighbors from an operational standpoint. The first project I ever developed, that 400-acre, $500 million project in the Toledo market, we did a really great job of putting design standards together and controlling the quality of what everything looked like. That first project, I didn't do a very good job of thinking about operating standards. And so you inevitably end up with disparate ownership. And if those disparate owners aren't tied together somehow, you get a mishmash that eventually doesn't hang together well. So we think in terms of owners associations and operating standards, as well as what's your building going to look like. So the program that the city's undertaken is unusual. There are not a lot of people doing the kinds of mixed-use developments we're talking about.
So any sort of, anybody's been around here in the springtime knows that everything inside the dike there washes out up to the dike, which runs right along the bike paths on top of it. So if we're going to have any sort of a recreation area that involves structures of any significance, it's really going to have to be outside the dike. So maybe it would be on the west side of your apartment area.
Yeah, we agree and understand, and there's actually already been some dialogue, I think just yesterday and maybe today, there's some dialogue about that with Miami Conservancy District. And what kind of structures could be built inside the levee versus not. I think they said 20 times a year that area floods or something like that. So, yeah. Thank you very much. Appreciate your attention.
And sir, your question will be addressed in the next presentation. That has been contemplated. We can talk some more about that as we go further. So, as Larry pointed out, the Whitewater Park is going to be critical to the success of the overall development. And with something so important, you want the best at the table. And we believe that the firm that we've hired, which is the Merrick / McLaughlin Whitewater Group, Merrick Engineering / McLaughlin Whitewater Group, is the best in the business. There aren't many people that do the kinds of things that they do, but the parks they've designed, and you'll see examples of that, are the best in the United States. So we have the best at the table to create what, as Larry described, is going to be one of the primary assets in this community that we believe will not only serve people in this area, but will be a draw for people from as far as 2, 4, potentially 6 or 8 hours away in terms of wanting to use this asset and return and bring other folks with them. So it's going to create vitality in itself, and I'm confident of that after what I've learned and the folks that I've talked to over the past several days and beyond that. So with that, I'm going to bring up the team leader. Her name is Christy Weisleader. I love that name, Weisleader. That is a great name. And she's the team leader for the team that's here. We have some very bright, capable people that Christy brought to work on the West Carrollton Whitewater Park. Christy Weisleader.
So I am going to start by introducing you to a little bit about who McLaughlin Whitewater is. This Whitewater team has been together for over 30 years. And at this point, they've been able to grow as they were acquired as part of Merrick and Company to have over 100 water professionals. And so water-related design, that is going to include water, wastewater, and surface water. And within surface water, we have that specialty for whitewater design. And so far, McLaughlin Whitewater has designed over 30 different venues, and you'll get to see a few snippets of those in this presentation. And we'll call them the parent company, is now well over 900 employees. I think we're closer to 1,000 at this point. And I'd like to highlight the individuals who have been very busy over, well, more than the past year, but extremely busy over the past 2 days with all the various stakeholder meetings and gathering information and feedback about the project. So our fearless leader, Rick McLaughlin, who is the name behind McLaughlin Whitewater, unfortunately not able to join us the past couple of days, but incredibly experienced and wonderful at leading our group. Mike had previously introduced me. I am the project manager for the river design project that you'll see. And then we have Daniel Swanson, who is the project engineer, will be leading the design effort. And then we have Daniel Lambert, who is our landscape architect. He's the one that's created a lot of the really cool visuals in this presentation. And part of the team from Pros Consulting, you'll get to hear a little bit about the operations planning, Brian Trusty. And then our consulting architect, who been part of a partnership with McLaughlin Whitewater for pretty much that entire 30 years. So next we're going to talk about the overall project vision and highlight some of the key themes that we see with the river park. So first and foremost is safety. Safety is the most critical and key component of anything that we're going to approach. If we're going to invite people to the river, we need to make sure that it's safe. Creating access. If we don't create access, then these features that we are planning won't get used. And visiting some other sites, we have found that inaccessible sites are not very fun to climb over rocks or slide down hills to get to. So creating access is an important component. River parks, the overall theme of this is creating and developing a user-friendly, inviting river park that blends all of the in-river and the upland elements. Our next theme is water trails. So we talked about access, which is going to create pedestrian trails and shared use paths that include for cyclists. Then we have water trails. So water trails are going to help convey and transport boaters and people using and on the water. And then we have a theme of restoration. So looking at the existing very, very engineered channel and restoring that to be natural and welcoming, making sure that we support the flora and fauna that are within the river itself. And then habitats. So this is really key to supporting the fish habitat within the area. We understand that there's a lot of anglers and secret fishing spots and that nobody's going to share with anybody else apparently because they're their secrets. But we want to support and make sure that the fish are happy and healthy and continue to remain in the area and that we don't cause any concern or harm to them. The next theme is, this one's really cool, is creating waves. So we're supporting recreation in the water itself and bringing people to the water to enjoy the waves that we create. And then our last theme is river health. So a healthy ecosystem that's connected throughout the entire space. So supporting all of the animals, the flora, the fauna, and making sure that the river functions and it's vibrant and viable. So with that, Brian Trusty is going to talk to you about operational planning.
Great, thank you, Christy. My name is Brian Trusty. I'm a principal at Pros Consulting. We're a small boutique consulting firm that specializes in operational planning, master planning, strategic planning for parks and recreation agencies, land management agencies. And I've been involved in the outdoor recreation space since the early 90s and became introduced to Rick McLaughlin and John Anderson in 2005 when I was hired to be the executive director of the Adventure Sports Center in far western Maryland, which is one of the first two recirculating whitewater parks in the Western Hemisphere. So I started off being Rick and John's client, and that's where I really got to learn how talented they were in doing this work. So I completely concur with Mike when he talks about you guys absolutely have the best. In my opinion, Rick really sets a new bar of excellence when it comes to whitewater design. But to Larry's point about the importance of operational planning, that's what I'm here to do. And I'm actually working alongside the McLaughlin team, but contracted directly with the city to be able to help the city think forward and have eyes wide open about how we want to operate this facility once it's complete. There's a lot of different things that are going to take into account. We'll be looking at the layers of the service market, like Mike mentioned. This is not only going to be a local treasure and an asset for you here in this community, it's going to be a draw from people from hours away. And so looking at what the different layers of that service market looks like and the qualities and the recreational participation trends of people that live in those markets, so that we can really start to estimate with a level of accuracy what kind of usage projections and visitation patterns we would see at this facility. And from there, we can put together a portfolio of core programs and services, a financial model, an operational model where you may have partners involved or concessionaires involved, and how that translates into a pro forma. And then, of course, providing support and guidance to the McLaughlin team as they're going through design. We're making sure that we're optimizing the user and the visitor experience, and that we're generating revenue so that the city can offset its operating costs in doing so. So to the woman's question in the back about will this be a park for everybody else besides just whitewater paddlers, and the answer to that is absolutely yes. The success of a facility like this cannot be hinged on just designing a park for whitewater kayaking enthusiasts. It's really about activating the space and energizing it for everyone. So you'll hear a lot about some of the different design elements that are being considered at this point, so that it is, whether it's whitewater kayakers or river surfers or families that come down and want to get in inner tubes and go down the side channel, or people that may just come down and gather, play at a playground or eat at a food truck and just hang out. That's what we really want to design a space for, so that it really truly is an asset to the community, for everyone in the community. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to Christy to kind of start walking us through the conceptual designs.
So I'm going to give you a little bit of project background and history really quick too, just so that you know what we've been up to for the past year. So our accomplishments have been primarily data gathering. We've collected the site hydrology, looked at that, gathered water surface points at various flow elevations. We collected information from the Miami Conservancy District so that we have an understanding of what the existing stuff that's there. And we also have the flood model and have been running that flood model to verify the existing conditions as well as looking at our upcoming proposed condition. So we've collected 7 sets of water surface measurements over the time through various flood events and collected critical elevations along the dam. We are currently obtaining the LiDAR data, so that's the surface, ground surface from the LiDAR fly through over the site, as well as the bathymetry, so that's the ground surface elevation underneath the water, so that we have that bottom of the river survey information to incorporate into our modeling. And our biggest accomplishment up to starting the phase that we're in now is developing a concept design. And so that concept design includes a few planning areas. And so a planning area is just a general distinction so that it helps us identify priority things. So planning area 1 includes our in-river improvements, that's the whitewater piece and the dam safing piece, and then some improvements adjacent to that to make it accessible and inviting. And then we have planning area 2, which could include boat launch areas and other site amenities, and then as well as planning area 3, which is a property that the city has acquired available for use for this entire river park. Next, we're going to look at a video of the in-river design concept. So the yellow outline there just kind of outlines the geography of the river park area and the area with a lot of potential. This is a lot of acreage, so there's a lot of land for all sorts of future potential uses. So you've seen the in-river piece of it, but there's so much more that we could do with the rest of the area. And here's an example from a project that we've recently completed. So this kind of gives you an idea of what that could potentially look like. So we also have the dam safing, a bypass channel, creating accesses directly to the river, some wonderful landscaping, and some fun user site amenities. So this just gives you a general idea of how something could look like for an overall river park. And then we also have a lot of potential uses for those areas that are out of the river. And we want to be able to make sure that the in-river use is supported. So you might have vendors that have stand-up paddle boards, surfboards, kayaks, as well as bringing in food trucks to have some cool, interesting food while you're out there after spending a day right next to the river. Could incorporate something like zip lining or like other fun, interesting outdoor activities that have an additional draw outside of just the river itself. And then we'd want to incorporate site facilities such as like restrooms and changing rooms to make those amenities available for the park users as well. And so with that, I'm going to have our project engineer, Daniel Swanson, step you through the really cool in-river features that we have planned.
So you have this really amazing site, and we know that it has a major issue. It floods all the time, and we're not going to change that. We know that there's going to be a chunk of the year in the spring with high flows when you're not going to be able to get to this site. But when the flows go down and you have this river that's great for recreation, we want to create a site that has great site access and gives people that opportunity to get down to the river, to watch kids in tubes, watch the surfers in our wave shaper, and really have an opportunity to engage with your neighbors and engage with nature. So your existing dam is a major safety risk. This type of crest on a dam creates a recirculating current downstream of it. If somebody was to go over that dam, they would get stuck in that current, and there's a good chance that they're not going to get out. So our number one priority on this project is to mitigate that risk. And we've done this on other projects on similar dams, and there's several approaches that you can take. The one that will most likely apply at this place would be to create a stepped face on the front of the dam. There's an example picture on the right on the slide that shows steps that are created out of grouted boulders. These have also been done with reinforced concrete or steel steps. And what this does is it breaks up the recirculating current so that if somebody were to go over the dam, it's not going to be a comfortable ride, but it's going to spit them out the other side, and they're going to be able to get out of the river in one piece. After we've addressed that safety risk at the dam, we're going to be looking at creating some recreational features that are going to attract people to the site and give people to interact with the river that they don't currently have the opportunity to do. This is a project that's getting wrapped up in Tulsa, and it's a similar type of concept where there's a side channel. You can see there's a variety of features in there. Right now, this particular project has control gates that allow the city to basically turn off water to the channel, which gives us the opportunity to see what's in the channel. But if they were to put those gates down and allow water into the channel, then you would get this whitewater course that people can go through in tubes and other watercraft. So this side channel, we're looking at something that is very friendly to beginners, people that haven't really interacted with whitewater before, to families with younger kids. So we're expecting to see a lot of use with kids in inner tubes, kayaks, And also having the opportunity to have an education space where you could have an instructor with a group of people with kayaks where they can learn in a low hazard environment how to roll their kayak, how to get out of their kayak, and how to do different maneuvers that are going to be easier to learn in a situation like this, as opposed to an actual class 4 rapids in the wild. We're also really interested in creating an environment that attracts people to the river. Lower right-hand corner, you can see there's tons of people hanging out, and that's really what we envisioned for this space, is a place that people can come, hang out with their friends, watch the activity in the river. We can have an area potentially with food trucks, get food, host special events on particular days throughout the year, and just have a really great community space for West Carrollton. Our high energy feature is the wave shaper. This is an adjustable wave feature that is patented by McLaughlin, and it creates the opportunity to really tune a wave to particular flow conditions. On the left-hand side, you can see a wave in Boise, Idaho that's been optimized in this video for river surfing. And then that wave is also adjustable, and it can be calibrated to better suit play kayaking. Here we have an example of one of our projects that's in Austria. This is sort of similar to what we're envisioning here, with a channel that includes flow. You can see a pretty expert surfer on this wave. So, timeline of events. When is this all going to happen? Right now, we're in preliminary design, and we've been meeting with stakeholders over the last couple of days. We're going to take feedback that we got from stakeholders, feedback that we get from all of you tonight, and incorporate that into our 30% design set. That set shows where the major features are. We figure out our major design decisions, and we use that set to submit to different permitting agencies. When you construct a levied reach like this in the river, there's a lot of agencies that need to approve the project before we begin construction. We need to make sure that we're not increasing flood risk. We need to make sure that we're not going to negatively impact the levees, and quite a few other things that we'll be looking at. So we'll be doing that permitting process throughout much of 2024. We'll take feedback from those agencies and incorporate those into our final design. And we would be looking at advertising this project in 2025 and starting construction. That first stage of construction is going to be the dam safing. That is number one thing before we start attracting people to the site. We need to mitigate that risk at the existing dam. And then from there, we'll move into the other phases, get the recreation constructed, and hopefully have the site open by the end of 2026. So I think now we're going to open it up to questions. Is that correct?
I was just curious whether you're going to have the control gates that, like you pointed out on the other.
So we're still in preliminary design. I can't give you a final answer on that. We're definitely looking at it. We are looking at a control system for the wave shaper, so we can really control how much wave is, or how much flow is going to that feature, so that we can really tune that wave and get something really amazing for surfing. For the bypass channel, there's a couple of options we're looking at. One of them is to have a gate system, so we can really fine tune the amount of flow going into the bypass, so that we can dial it way back and have times that are optimized for really low rec, and then potentially have something higher energy, slightly higher energy at other times. But that's still being looked at.
Mitigating the low head dam hazards is just, if we didn't do anything else, that's fantastic. Thank you.
I'll be quick this time. What is the closest water park that's near our location here? Are we gonna be the only one in Ohio, or?
There are features in downtown Dayton, nothing close to this.
Yeah.
South Bend is kind of, what I'm hearing. But
So is this gonna be like open at all times, or is this gonna be something where if there's somebody controlling the lever, lever, whatever, adjusts the wave, is that gonna be on a schedule? Or?
So as far as like the park being open at all times, that is something that the city is working through. We've met with various stakeholders, and I'm gonna say there's a high level of interest from specifically like the surfing community or the kayaking community in being able to use that. But there's also a lot of safety concerns specific to like just safety enforcement. So that's something that will have to be worked out specifically with that. And then you had a second part of that question.
If that was the case, then there would probably end up being like a schedule of some sort, like today it's gonna be a green wave for boarders, tomorrow we're gonna actually put a foam pile on top for kayakers.
Yeah, and that has absolutely everything to do with what the community is interested in, what they want. So the schedule could vary from defining that the big surf wave feature for a single day, it's focused on kayakers, or it's focused on more like entry-level beginners, surfers, or it could change multiple times a day, and you have a few hour blocks, and then it's modified to be adjusted to that. So it's going to kind of depend on what the overall community wants and needs and how it best supports them.
I was just curious out there, the airport is pretty close to the river, so I was wondering what kind of barriers you are anticipating to provide safety environment, considering the fact that it's very close. And then I was wondering what kind of limitations you are anticipating and how you are thinking of mitigating those concerns.
Specifically with air, our understanding is that there's a 100-foot height limitation tied to any structures, and being able to make sure that the airport can continue to run without concerns. And then within the river itself, within the levee lower area, we will not be able to have permanent buildings and structures per MCD, but we will be able to have other amenities incorporated within it, potential movable amenities, as well as potentially shade structures and trees within it. So kind of addressing the second half of your question, like our restrictions on being able to deal with the flood and the higher water flows and what those are would potentially create some limitations on what can be included within the river and within the levee area itself.
My husband is handicapped, and currently he fishes off of the dam. So with this wave thing, how is that going to affect, once this is all put together, for him to be able to go down there because he can't walk?
ADA access for all the trails is something that we've already recognized that needs to be incorporated. So access is a priority within the site. And we are looking at where the best locations are to support anglers within the area, because we do want to make sure that that's accessible and kind of blend the current fishing community with the recreational community. So yeah, and that is absolutely great to know that we can put that at like a high priority item to make sure that we're incorporating access directly to those fishing areas.
I noticed there's nothing about splash pads for children. Is that something that might be talked about or thought about when it comes to especially younger kids?
Yeah. I think that would be great, probably not at this location though. I'm not sure that given the constraints that there is with Miami Conservancy District, that we would be able to install those kind of permanent features. As Christy just mentioned, anything that we're going to install down in the riverway, it's not to say that we can't do temporary structures, but whatever it is that we do has to be removable, so that because of many issues, including the flooding in the area.
I didn't notice in the timeline, when does the rebuilding of the dam start? Like approximately, I know there's no hard answers.
Yeah, let's actually just go back to that schedule. So, we're looking at likely the low flow, so it's probably not until June, July of 2025, because we will have restrictions within the river of when construction can be happening due to the floodwater levels.
Thank you. Chris, can you talk about that just a bit more? Talk about generally what the construction season is that we're going to be confined to each year.
So the river continuously tends to have lots of flood events towards like the end of winter and early spring. So that's your flood season. That's your high runoff season. And construction in general and being in the rivers, it's not a viable option. And additionally, having construction equipment within the river creates additional hazards within the river, which we'd want to avoid. So there's a restricted season. So once those flows die down, usually like midsummer and then into the winter would be like the prime construction season. So that's when you're going to see activities occurring, I'll say, like below the levee height.
What's going to be the draw, the usage projections? So that's part of the market analysis that we're now just beginning. So that material won't be posted at this time because we're just going through that analysis now. But we should be through that in the next, I'd say 45 or 60 days.
Hello. You've seen the features up in Dayton. I was wondering about this big wave thing. Is it solely blocked off to where you cannot come down the river? You know, we're on a paddling expedition or something down the river. Will we be able to fall into this wave and catch it? Or do we have to get out and maneuver around walls to be able to get into it each and every time?
Currently, the concept has the bypass channel available for anybody coming down river. They could stop and then use the feature right there. So we'll look at the access potential specifically for a kayak community that it's interested in that. Yeah, and John Anderson has some additional input on this one.
I was involved in the initial planning of this about a year ago, and I think we did a presentation last May. The concept, we thank the city, has been very decisive, and the stakeholder community has been very decisive about what they want. And what Christy mentioned is that the fact that if you wanted to use the big wave feature or the kayak wave feature in a canoe or kayak, the way to get there most easily would be to paddle down the bypass channel, then paddle back upriver, attain up to the bottom of that pool where the big wave is. And there would be, what we really haven't mentioned, there will be another wave down there that would be specifically for kayaks and canoes that would be available. Essentially, whenever the wave is running, there will be water running over it, and it would be kind of more of a retentive wave for playing. If you wanted to get up into the larger wave, one would have to basically get out of the boat, carry up into the pool, and then get into the wave from there. And we did get a lot of comments about the walls. Unfortunately, the Austrian example that we shown, I think on the opening picture and some of the videos, most of the videos, that was actually specifically for and exclusively for river surfing. The example in Boise does have eddy access from below around the walls. You can actually scooch around them and get on the wave from there. And it really just comes down, oh, by the way, in Boise, they have an employee in the Parks Department that is called the Wave Master. We can start taking applications now for the City of West Carrollton. Yeah, you can. You may end up having to pay them to be the job. No, you'll be in charge of the wave and set the schedule. This may be a little bit deep in the weeds, but we would like to be able to use the first wave to get the water to move faster and do something better with the second wave, so that we're getting better surfing capabilities. So that may be a long answer, and I'll turn it back to Christy.
Thank you. We have not been informed of anything where there would be a second wave on top of this. We were only understanding it was just gonna be one,
Yeah, that's
one feature at top.
Yeah, we should probably, clarify our presentation in that, final one.
Yeah, even in the beginning. The second part was you guys mentioned like a training area. Is that factored into this project, or is that gonna be left up to the city in the county or community to organize that later down the road also?
Having the space in the area available for training classes is something that we would want to incorporate into the overall design. And like, as I'll say, over the past couple of days, I've kind of learned that that's kind of a very big priority in having something like that available, because there's not really anything else locally to support that.
Yeah, one of your slides had a slalom course, and that's not available anywhere in Ohio, which would be a great addition to it. Yeah, for maneuverability, plus just spectators coming in and saying, what is that? What's going on? Like, we want to know. We can't do the wave thing, but we can paddle around some holes and maybe get more interested.
Yeah, thank you for that comment. I appreciate the additional input there.
I hope everyone's excited about this. I think it is a genuine opportunity for the city to really distinguish itself in the Miami Valley and in the broader region. So
the main entrance to most of this is going to be on the far side of the river, down by the sewer area. Is that correct?
Hydraulic road, the way it's currently envisioned, that would be the primary entrance to the facility, yes.
Okay, is there any plan on reconstruction of Alex Road then?
Not specifically, I'm not sure. That's probably something that would be included in the maintenance schedule for the area. I'm not sure what that looks like. I can certainly talk to the city engineer. We're certainly going to want the entryway to this to be nice, so we would look at that as a part of the overall project, but I don't have a specific answer for you right now in terms of Alex Road.
Because I just, with a smaller road with the traffic and stuff, of widening the road or whatever. So.
Right. Widening, I'm not sure how that would look because it bumps up right against the levee, but certainly something we can take a look at and see what's possible. Certainly want to get a gauge on what the traffic is going to look like to this location, and how much it's actually going to affect the traffic patterns.
Yeah, Mike, if I could jump in on that.
Yeah, sure.
One thing that we haven't really had an opportunity to do yet is to take our development team and do a mind meld with the McLaughlin Merrick team. Good things will come out of that. The things that I showed you on the development plan will likely morph over time as we learn more details about where they're headed. Because the best thing for the community is if we're working in concert where this goes. So traffic issues, entry points, overall branding, messaging, those things, eventually we'll be working together to work through those kind of questions.
My other concern is where are all these people supposed to park?
All right, well, that's a good question. So there is currently parking, there's a parking field down in the river area currently. So there's the potential to expand upon that, and that would be very likely. It was also pictured that there's an area across the street, across hydraulic. We envision that as being a part of the operational area. It's the former wastewater treatment facility that's located on the west side of hydraulic. So parking could be incorporated there as well. So I think there are plenty of opportunities for additional parking. We're thinking we want to be able to facilitate food trucks in the area, down in that area, and that would probably make sense on some type of asphalt pad. So that's what that would look like. To answer your question, I would see the potential, again, still being designed, so I don't want to get too far out over my skis, but I would see the potential for perhaps a performance venue, something that would be portable down in the area, so people, perhaps we could go there and listen to music. I think that there are potential for all types of activities. I could see being a grandfather, I could see taking my grandkids there, and just spending time outside with them. And there's going to be the opportunity for kids to tube down the portage path. So I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities to socialize down at the river park.
And Mike, I know earlier, the Whitewater folks, at least in our meetings, they were talking about creating spectator areas that were very important. And they were working pretty hard on that, on how to expand that, so people could just come watch. There are a lot of people that don't actually want to jump in the wave, but they sure want to watch. So they're very keen on that, and creating those areas. At least that's what I heard in the meeting.
Something was mentioned earlier about not having permanent structures down so close to the water. Does that mean like some other places have, where they have breweries or restaurants or things like that close? So that's why there was mention of putting in more portable type of offerings?
Yeah, basically, we can't do anything that's going to interrupt the current calculated flow for flood control in the area. The engineers could explain that better than I can, but so you can't create things, permanent vertical structures that impede flow or just change the flow calculations of the river. So these smart people calculate all that as they're making these changes, and they live within the regulations provided by the Conservancy District. So again, we can do things on a temporary basis that could be set up, brought down. So I would see where we would be able to create foundational areas in the river area, the floor of the river area, but in terms of anything permanent that would come up vertically and affect flow, that's not allowed to take place.
Will this park be maintained by the city, or is it going to be outsourced, or is it going to be a metro park, or where's that going to come into play?
Yeah, that's a great question. Again, I would envision this would become something that was managed under the city's Parks and Recreation Department. I think a logical follow-up question, well, how are you going to pay for that? So we have a couple of different funding sources in place. This overall area which will be driven by the private sector development, is a tax increment finance district. So we're proceeds from that tax increment finance district, and what it is the property taxes that come into the community. Those property taxes, a portion of them go to the TIF, and a portion continue to go to the school district. So we can take the funds derived from the TIF district, and they can be used to pay for public improvements, activities within the public improvement area. So that would be one source of dollars, and there will be additional cost that comes from this. Two, Brian's going to offer a lot of insight for us, because not only will he be developing a pro forma in terms of what the operational cost of this will look like as it's conceived in our mind at this point in time, but he's also going to be able to identify potential revenue sources. So there are other models where own public facilities where they derive income from perhaps leases to liveries, canoe liveries, perhaps a licensing for food trucks. So I think that there's a potential for income into the park from people that want to provide services or sell their wares there. So that's another source of funds. And then we're also looking at something called a new community authority. There will be a sales tax that applies within the mixed-use development area. We'll be able to take a portion of that to fund activities that support the overall river district.
I'll just add to that. So the intent of a lot of the work that we're doing is that operational plan, so we can look at how we can generate earned revenue through canoe rent, equipment rentals, program fees, things like that, or concessionaire fees for food vendors, things like that, to be able to offset operating and maintenance costs. Just as a point of reference, the city of Ann Arbor, Michigan, they have a very popular, similar type of a facility on the Huron River. It's run by the Parks and Recreation Department. They make $1 million a year just from kayak and inner tube rentals. So that goes to pay for the ongoing operations and maintenance of that system.
Rental, did you say?
Rentals.
You know, one of the things we've come to realize is what a great stretch of river we have between West Carrollton and the city of Miamisburg. It's absolutely scenic. You wouldn't believe that you're in Dayton, Ohio. And I think that's going to be something that people are really going to realize as a result of having the kind of access that we're going to provide to the river here, and that'll become a popular canoeing trip. Thank you very much. This, I know, speaking again on behalf of the city leadership, our elected officials, that this is very gratifying to see this kind of interest. Again, is when I made my initial comments, I really believe that this can be transformational for our community. And stay tuned. It's going to take a while to make happen, but it takes a while to make good things happen. It's an extensive process, but we're going to do this right, and we're going to change. The River District is going to have extreme positive impact on the West Carrollton community. So thank you very much for coming.